Good afternoon, everyone, and for our colleagues back in America, good morning to you guys. And I would like to thank you for joining us this afternoon for our second of a series of live webinars, mainly focusing on Dynamics 365. So for today's session, we will be looking at DevOps4Dynamics, automating build and deployment. I just go through our speakers for today. So I'm joined by two of my test house colleagues. My first colleague is Mohammed Radwan, who is our Visual Studio MVP and DevOps practice lead. So he is our DevOps practice lead for test house with 15 years of professional experience. He is focused on providing solutions for the various roles involved in software development and delivery of Microsoft Visual Studio DevOps tools and technologies. So he is also a regular speaker at our technology events and user groups. The next colleague of mine is my colleague Mohammed Sakdeva. He's our solution architect for Dynamics CRM. So he has full project lifecycle working experience with Dynamics 365, delivered over 20 CRM projects in different capacities. So he has worked for companies such as Microsoft, KPMG, and of course with a focus on Microsoft Dynamics CRM. I'll quickly go through the agenda for you guys today. So for today, it's an only listen mode as well. So if you do want to type your questions, please do it on your attendee chat as shown on your screen now. So for today, we'll be looking at what is DevOps as the first topic of our agenda. And the next one would be continuous delivery and integration and our test house initiative. And then we will be looking at Dynamics CRM 365. We'll be looking at a demo from my colleague Mohit. So he'll be demoing automated deployment. And towards the end, we will have the Q&A session. So without further delay, I now pass you over to my colleague Mohammed.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mohammed Radwan. I'm a Visual Studio MVP, and I will just starting to explain what is DevOps or just to give an overview about that. Okay, so DevOps. We hear about a lot of about the development and operation, and then just explaining the idea. So all the time we have a wall between development and operation, and this is usually when the development team just completing a project and they just package that, then they just give that to the ops or the operation team, which will take that and start deploying that in production. They may use hacking the script, and this will lead to a problem in the production. And this is usually happen because we all the time having this wall. So in order to have a better development and operation, the first thing we recommended is to having continuous integration. And when we're talking about continuous integration, is the main idea is the ability to have, avoid the integration problem when some developer working on fixing a bug. And then maybe when he fixing this bug, he introducing another bug, or maybe there is a problem about that with other developer code and so on. And we want to avoid these problems of this kind of problem by having a continuous integration, which reduce the risk, increase the quality, and the confidence about our code. The second concept, one of the concept in DevOps is continuous deployment, the ability to deploy in production frequently. This is the main idea of having continuous deployment. So, and when we have a continuous deployment pipeline, which means that we have a release management tool, and then we build our project, we write the code, and we start after that is to, yes, a little bit. We start building the code and then run the unit testing. After that, the application starts package and then deploy it, preparing that to the provision, the environment that we are going to deploy that, and then deploy that to this environment. In the continuous delivery, we might having stored that. So for example, if I have different staging like QA and operation stage, then they just need to deploy the same bits to that environment. So what we are going to do is making a store which will store our, building bits inside that store, and then starting from this point, take that and deploy that to the same environment or the different environment in the same way. So having the same way deploying to different environments and then running the test and so on. So let me give you an example of continuous deployment or delivery example. In record, one of the biggest company for e-commerce is Amazon. They showing continuous deploy to the production every 11.6 seconds in average. When we look at the Facebook, for example, we will see that the Facebook release to production twice a day. And Google as well has many services they just developed in the mainstream and the mainline. So the main idea with continuous delivery is the ability to deploy frequently in production. So let me give you a quick introduction about the main principle of continuous delivery. When I'm talking about continuous delivery, the first principle is the process for releasing and deploying software must be repeatable and reliable. And when we talk about that, this will lead to the second one, automate everything. The process might be repeatable, but in order to be reliable, we need to make sure that it's automated. This is how I can really being this process reliable by automating that process. The third, principle that if something is difficult or painful, do it more often. A little bit this at the beginning could be sound silly at the beginning, but if we just try to understand this concept, it's just like if we really having some painful practices. Let me give you an example, like deploying the schema of the database, and then if I do that frequently and try to do that more often, then I will try to automate that process or enhancing that process and could lead at the end to automate that, which make it will be much easier for me and for deploying that. Another principle is keep everything in source control. I would expect that all people doing that, but actually in reality, few people even know that. So we need to really keep everything under source control. Done means released. This is the main idea of continuous delivery. When the developer finish, that's meaning when we finish and our code in production, not just like finish the dev or finish the test. No, done means released. Build the quality in. We need to just build the quality in mind. Like we need to put some code metrics. We need to look at our code coverage. So we need to having a better code coverage for our unit testing, integration testing. We need to have code metrics like cyclomatic metric, a code static analysis, and all this kind of quality that help us to implement more quality about our development code. Everybody has a responsibility for release process. It is not that we have a project working in the developer machine, we will not get any money. We will not get money before we deploying our projects from the developer machine to the production, and this is the responsibility of the team. So, yes, improve continuously. This is not the end. We will keep continuously improving what we did from the beginning to the end, all the pipeline. So again, this is just a main principle about continuous delivery. So again, the DevOps life cycle, it's all about pushing the code to the source control, reaching that change, running the unit test and build, store this artifact on the store, then provisioning the environment for testing, the QA and so on, deploy that, running some load test of performance, all that for the staging to the production. So at the end, DevOps more than just the continuous integration and continuous delivery. It's just all the practices behind enhancing the ability to, developing better software. Okay, I will give it now to my colleague Mohit, who will take you more focus on how we implementing DevOps with Dynamics.
Hi all, good afternoon. So just to start with what DevOps4Dynamics, I think Mohammed has been very kind to leverage the principle of Dynamics, for DevOps. And I think the key purpose here is that the challenges we face with the standard Dynamics implementation. So when we go through a standard Dynamics implementation, it does not lend itself to a continuous process of managing the life of an application through governance, development, and maintenance. If you take a very typical example of a WPF or a modern app or an ASP.NET website, these applications are normally self-contained within Visual Studio solutions. So this means we could either source manage them using Git or TFS, where everything is available to build, test, and deploy applications across different environments. Now, Dynamics 365 does not lend itself well to some of our ALM tooling, which is provided by Microsoft, and a lot of deployments tend to rely on manual processes to establish the necessary rigor we need to go through. So the common scenarios we see is the CRM has multiple solutions. You have workflows to publish. The value of the records change from. So GUID IDs are not persisted. Your entity IDs are not the same. And on top of that, not the whole solution lives in a single place. So you've got the case of number of things which are configured within the dynamic CRM. For example, the data model, entities, attributes, duplicate detection rules, the user interface such as the forms, views, reports, and dashboards, the security roles. And then you come to JavaScript. I think this is kind of a gray area. And you have all your configuration settings, your organization settings, such as the settings of setting the format, the email server settings, the duplicate detection settings. And all these settings then needs to be migrated from each environment, so across from development to SIT, to UAT, to operational testing, and then to production. Now, how do we do that, and how does in terms of managing configurations, there are tools provided by Microsoft, if people were to say so. It's been a hot topic with the product group for a long time, and which has resulted into two tools such as the data migration utility and the solution packager and the package deployer. Now, these solutions are on its own, they're very good, but they're not sort of meant for an enterprise level where you could automate these solutions to deploy solutions across different environments. Now, in the slide here, I have a very classic example of how you will configure a Dynamics implementation. So we have our developer who's working on his local machine along with the TFS server. We have a CRM configuration org where he goes and does the CRM configuration. And we have a development org. So the normal process is the user goes in, they do all the data model and the package-based changes in the CRM configuration org. They then check in all the changes, get the solution file, run a solution packager, and basically get it into a folder structure where they can then check in everything into CRM. They can then do a get latest and deploy it to the CRM development org, and then do all their development cycle until they have something which is credible enough to release, and then they can check it back in, and from there we could have a initiated build, which go on to a build server. So how does DevOps4Dynamics help? So what we have a test how to start as an initiative to start using the three different components provided by Microsoft. We got Azure, we got the Visual Studio tooling, as well as Dynamics. Now, how we integrating the three? We're using the Visual Studio tooling as a source control and as a build agent. Dynamics itself is a product we're lending to, and we're providing automated deployments. And Azure to sort of sometimes use as a build server, so we tend to have a build server as an IaaS. Normally, a CRM system or an application deployed in an enterprise or the sort of medium scale industry always has some sort of integration, either upstream or downstream. And with CRM Online or Dynamics 365, we tend to use Azure as a standard practice for integrating into either we use Service Bus or the Data Factory, or we have some sort of worker roles running in Azure. And this is where the automated deployment really helps to progress things quickly. So, sorry, press 2, I got 2 click happy there. So I'm just going to go back to, so what will be an ideal state? An ideal state for CRM development will be where we can actually check in all our code into some sort of a source repository, be it TFS or Git, and we can have a build agent which can, where we can then deploy that solution and then release it to the test team. Now, some teams could actually have an automated build along with test automation on top, where you could basically have test automation based on Dynamics, which can give you an end result if your build was successful or not, and then you can give so beat the developer with a stick if required, if they've not delivered the right code or checked in a buggy code, and you could actually then have that build to be deployed to a staging or a system test environment. Fast same build can then progress through all the way through production. That will be kind of an ideal stage for every project we would like to see. Now, what tools do we get? We get the new developer toolkit, which is quite nice to use. And then we have the version, which helps serve version control via TFS. We got the solution packager, which I believe a lot of developers have been using since 2011 when it was released. And I believe it's quite a good tool to manage. Where test house IP sort of comes into, or our tooling comes into, we have the sync tool we leverage is the standard out-of-the-box sync tool of Microsoft, basically the Granule function. We have Team Foundation build services for your CRM solutions, and we have a deployment tool. And our deployment tool is a bit more extensive than the standard package deployer. So what I would do now is I will switch on to my VM, and we will then start a live deployment of code. Sorry guys, just can anyone confirm if they can see a CRM? Okay, so what I have here is a virtual machine where I have got a CRM system. I've got 3 CRM orgs. One is my development org where I go and develop. Then I've got a deployment org where I deploy to, and a build org where solutions get automatically deployed. From a source perspective, I've got a CRM solution, 3 solutions. I've got a core solution, a contact management solution, and an incident management solution. So if I go into my core solution under export, you will see I'm using solution packager. I've created these folders, so I've got all my different entities. The different web resources are here. And then I've also got all the different workflows. Now, I'm not going to bore you with all this because a lot of people use solution packager day in, day out. So what we have is, I'll simply show you, is all our solutions already. So I'm going to just delete these solutions here, and I'm going to regenerate these solutions because I've got a build file. So I'm just going to do command prompt, and I'm just going to give it the URL. Sorry, just doesn't need its URL. This just needs this. And what this will do is, this is basically using the standard pack operation, and it's packaging all the CRM solutions as part of it. It will generate a managed and an unmanaged copy for us. So as part of our build agent, we use this build solutions copy, which then generates a set of solution files and then put them out at a specific location. So if we now go back to our solution files, we will see we've got solutions generated with today's timestamp of 12/22. We've got 4 solutions. Now, let's get into our deployment. So we want to deploy, we've made some changes to a solution. We want to deploy these changes to our deployment, and we will run a deployment. Now, to run a deployment, what we do is we go into this folder, and we got all the different structure here. So for example, for data, within data, we got our data maps. So all the data maps we are importing, all the different data files we will be importing. And if I just go through the XML files here, so in the data map import, you can see we're importing the 3 data maps for the purpose of demo. We got site.xml, the contact.xml, and the autonumber.xml. For the data import side, we are actually importing the data for the 3 relevant datas. And then from solution, we actually have 2 solutions to import. So what I'm going to do for the demo purposes, I'm just going to comment the code out, because if I do both, it takes a lot longer to run. And for the demo, we will only have 1 solution to import. And what we will do is we will start with we'll go back into here, and we'll start another command prompt. And, and we will run deploy.bat, and we will pass in our URL of the local host. So this will now start importing solution. Let's see once it starts, and then okay, apologies for that. Let me see what's happened there. Let's quickly check what was the error. Okay, I think that I didn't spell the local right. So it's down to spelling errors. Nothing wrong with the code. So it's a user error. You can't blame the computer if the user cannot spell. There we go. Works hunky-dory. So it's importing the solution. Now, while it's importing the solution in the background, I will go through how we've kept this deployment quite configurable. So what we have in our PowerShell script is we've got our DevOps4Dynamics commandlets, which are PowerShell commandlets we've created. We've got a standard CRM SDK, and then what we've done on top of it, we've provided with configurable XML files. So you see you've got the solution files to import, the data maps, the data files, workflows to publish. So this is a very common scenario where you have your solutions kind of go in, then you import your data, and once your data gives are all correct, you then import your workflow solutions, and then you publish your workflows. As part of the demo, we are also importing the deduplication rules. Now, if you had an example would be if you had a developer build, in the developer world, you will probably just import solutions and data. In your UAT, in your staging environment build, you will probably import you will probably first remove all the existing solution or restore a database backup or blank vanilla backup if you're doing on-premise. If you're doing online, you probably will start with importing CRM solution files, re-importing the data, and then implementing this same site configuration. These could be individual steps in your deployment files, and you could have a deployment file specific to each environment if you wanted to. So let's see how our deployment's doing. So still importing the contact management solution. It will take a few minutes to sort of import the solution. While this is importing, what we will do is we'll just simply see our CRM if it's got the solution file. Yeah, it's kind of got the solution file here in the deployment log. So I think we should be moving next quickly. Now, because it's a demo, we've not really gone through a whole process of checking in, checking out, and then running the extract tool and packaging it. I kind of had that all pre-configured because we only had an hour to kind of talk through these things. And here you go. So the import of solutions now successfully completed. The data maps have been imported successfully. We're now importing the data. So we'll be importing the data files. Take a few more minutes. Contacts, I think it will just do a few more things and the deployment will then finish. Okay, and I think the last thing it will import is the duplicate detection rules. Once that's imported, we will just simply go and review the data. So I think the contact data is imported. We can just review that. Have we got contact data? So we go into contacts. We'll have two contacts, one emergency, one anonymous. Yep. If you go into sites, we probably have sites under here, under sort of administration. And it's now importing the duplicate detection rules, and the deployment is now completed successfully. So as you've seen, so we managed to import not just CRM solutions, we imported CRM solutions, data maps, data files, and duplicate detection rules, and all of this has been done without any manual intervention. All we did was just configure a few XML files, and we just pressed the button to deploy. And I think that's what lacks in package deployer. So you can create these packages as part of package deployment, but it still requires you to write some C# code and change it as per your configuration. Whereas with this, you can actually manage everything to just a handful of XML files and then deploy it across and give it to a release management team. In one of our projects, we managed to reduce the deployment time by at least 4 hours, and we managed to at the end, when we gave the release for the production and the subsequent updates, they basically didn't have to manage whole day, and everything was quite sort of very smooth. A single document with release notes and a deployment package, which basically went through smoothly. What I'll do is I'll just stop streaming for now. I'll go back to the slides. So what do we provide? We provide modular deployment space, so you don't have to. So as package deploy does the whole package, the solutions, the data. This provides a bit more comprehensive than that. You can import solutions. You could remove solutions. You could install. So data, which is fairly simpler as a package deployment, but the things which you can do are the duplicate detection rules, the importing business units, which is a very, very complex when you're doing it because it fails if you're trying to re-import the business units. Import of the, I think the other things that it does is at the top of my head, organization settings, any of the deployment settings, user settings. It helps you manage all that through a standard, centralized version controlled and a repeatable deployment process. So the current capabilities, this slide's just kind of giving what it helps you to import all the sort of deployment capabilities our tooling has. And just some ALM resources from the Microsoft blogs. Okay, I'm going to head it back to Mel, and she will sort of take it from here.
Thank you very much, Mohit, for a presentation on Dynamics CRM. As my colleague Mohit mentioned, we are now on a Q&A session. Again, please type in your questions on your attendee chat, as I mentioned to you guys earlier this afternoon. Okay, I've got a few questions coming in, so we'll start the questions now. So the first question is, do we need to have 100% code coverage to implement continuous delivery? Mohammed, that would be for you.
Okay, so yes, it's a little bit tricky question. Actually, it's we put our goal to have 100 code coverage. Also, we have different tools that we might use for generating the unit testing, and so the main idea that we put this goal, and we're using other tools to generate some testing, and then to achieve that as much as we can. And the code coverage is not the only factor we're using for implementing continuous delivery. We have different quality aspects that we can use to implement that. So I would say no, we don't have to have 100 code coverage, but it's better to reach a maximum coverage as much as we can.
Thank you, Mohammed. And next question from one of our delegates. Could you please show me how to configure connection string if it is on-premise? Mohit, that would be you, sir.
So, hi, Mahesh. So what I did for CRM, what I use is connection string. We're just using the CRM tooling connector, and in which we basically provide your connection string as a URL, login name, and auth type. So in this version, which I demoed, we're using the client DLL. So it just accepts the the URL and the username and password. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Mohit. Another question for you. So in the demo that you've just presented, you are using CRM on-premise. Will this work with CRM Online or Dynamics 365?
Yes, the tooling works with the Dynamics 365 as well. Just for the purposes of avoiding any latency or networking issues, we tend to use on-premise, but we have a completely workable solution with Dynamics 365, which was Studio TFS Online as well.
Thank you, Mohit. I think that is about it for the Q&A session. I don't see any other questions that we have from the delegates. So we just need to wrap up quickly. So the recording, again, will be available for you guys by Monday, the latest. And obviously, before we go, I have another question from one of our delegates, a last-minute question. So let me ask that quickly. So the question is, what I have seen is actually a manual process with some handy tools. Can we see some automation working on DFS server, as CI build and CD, which triggers after code is checked in?
So, hi, Chris. Yes, we could. In today's demo, I don't have that configured for you, but that we can definitely send across a video or actually cover it on next series of demo. We have a complete setup demo where we do a CI build, which happens on the check-in. So we have basically a gated check-in which runs the build, makes sure the builds it's a successful build, and only then it lets you check in. And then you get a post that, based on your deployment, how the settings are. We have it sort of running every hour. It basically deploys to a CRM Online. server. On top of that, it also runs a test automation package in our continuous integration and deployment package to validate it, validating all our tests as well. Hope that answers your question. I know you're not able to see it today, but we're happy to show it in the next demo.
Thank you, Mohit. As I mentioned earlier, so if you do have any further questions to my colleague Mohammed and Mohit, please do send them. Their details are on your screen right now. You can send them your questions via their email address. I'm sure they'll answer it for you guys today. Thank you, Mohit and Mohammed, for today's presentation. And thanks, everyone, for joining us today. And hopefully we will see you at our next live session. So the theme that we will be focusing on for the next session is on performance testing using Dynamics 365. More information will follow on our next session. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a good day. Thank you.